What's up, folks, and welcome to Retro Ramble. So I got another one of these Rodalaika Games modern re-releases for you guys today, and these just keep coming. They do, but they're often very interesting little curiosities, and that's why I like covering them for you. And this one is no different because, well, this is the first PC Engine game that they have put out. And the PC Engine was known as the TurboGrafx-16 in North America, and it is a console that I personally think it gets way too maligned, and that I think was actually a pretty awesome system. That's definitely not the majority opinion for some reason. And this title is also interesting because it's a modern localization of a title that originally only came out in Japan. So this is Citizen Shockman, which was originally known as, I gotta look over here because the name is hard to pronounce, Shubibinman. The sequel to that, which was just called Shockman, or, well, Shubibinman 2, got localized as Shockman for the TurboGrafx-16, but the original game never did. And that's what this is. Rodalaika has taken care of giving this an English translation and putting it out on this side of the pond for modern systems. So, I'm not going to really spend any time on this going over the options in these Rodalaika collections. They're very similar. They're not the best I've ever seen, but they are far from the worst. There's a million other videos of these that you can go back and look at if you want to see that stuff. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but it's got a pretty decent bevy of features for it. What this version brings to the table is it does have cheats, which gives you invincibility and allows you to have maximum money in the game. Funny enough, at least on Xbox, which is what I'm playing on here, they don't affect achievements. So if you want an easy 1,000 points, which frankly a lot of these Rodalaika games offer, then you have that option if you like. And here you can see you have the two different versions. You can play the original Japanese release if you like, which is always nice to see. So, all right, let's fire this up. We will fire up the English version. And yeah, so it's pitched kind of as Mega Man-ish, and, well, it's called Shockman, you know, so I think that's what they were trying to go for, but it's not really the same. It's definitely different than that. It has its own spin on it, and this is a very cool little piece of gaming archaeology, I guess you'd say, but I would definitely say the Mega Man games are better. I think this is cool, but it's definitely, you can tell it's the first in the series, and you can tell that it's definitely got some rough edges to it. As I understand it, I've never played this series before. As I understand it, it improved in future versions, but this is still kind of interesting. So, it does have 2-player, which is nice, obviously local only, and I suspect the game is definitely easier if you play it that way. So what you get here is, this is what it looks like. The localization in this, it's designed to be very tongue-in-cheek. It's very kind of goofy, you know, but I think it's decent for what they're going for. So what you're trying to do here is save your town from this evil force. That's basically what it is. And what you can do is, you have a certain amount of time in which to do it. And you can, every time you die in a level, you lose at least part of a day, if not an entire day. And it's game over if you can't complete it by the end. But every time you successfully complete a level, at least this has largely been my experience, is that time doesn't advance forward. So if you're good at it, you know, you can get through it good and quick. And you can choose these levels in any order based on, you know, you can choose every level ahead of where you're starting from. So you choose to move there, and you get to a platformer level like this. Now, these levels, this is where things start to differ a lot from the Mega Man games. For starters, your attack is melee. You don't have guns in this. Secondly, the levels are actually relatively short. There are a variety of different kinds of enemies, but the levels start off very, very easy for the most part, but by the end of the game, they get absolutely vicious. And, you know, that was pretty common for this era of video gaming. You know, they didn't have a lot of space to make games particularly large, so they had to make them hard in order to pad out the length. You know, that's a story as old as the consoles themselves, and it's nothing, you know, nothing unusual. As you can see here, it's kind of a combination of platforming and the combat, and every level is ended by a boss. Now, the bosses in this are possibly one of the game's most disappointing aspects, because there's only a few of them and they're repeated. The later ones are extremely difficult in the sense that they are hit point sponges, effectively. Some of them do things like this, where they have enemies, mob enemies that come in with them. Some of them have... Some of the enemies in this, including like a flying one that you'll run into here, has an absolutely obscene hitbox. You can come within like 5 feet of it practically and take damage, which can be really frustrating. So you've really got to learn and optimize for their patterns. You also may have noticed there that I was sort of bailing a lot, and part of the reason for that is that the movement inertia in this game is super, super strange. So we'll get back to that. So when you're in the main map here, you can spend money to heal your life. You get money by killing enemies in the game. There is a score system as well, though it's pointless. There's actually no high score system in this at all. You do have the ability to buy enhancements as well for your weapons and abilities that you can get by the different levels. If you want to max out all the different levels you have, or all of the abilities that you have, you are definitely going to want to try to do all the levels if you can, because the fewer of them you do, the harder time you're going to have with the final boss in the game. So it's kind of that's the part of this that I think makes this really interesting compared to something like a Mega Man, is that it's not... The order in which you choose to pursue the levels can be beneficial, which was Mega Man's biggest thing. But in this, you don't have to do every level if you don't want to. And if you choose not to, then you could potentially make the game more difficult. But by doing them all, you risk running out of time. So, I think that's kind of a cool idea and a cool twist on that formula. Now, I talked before about the movement inertia. Well, you can see what's going on here. When you let off the D-pad, when you press on the D-pad, it takes you a while to start moving. When you let off the D-pad, it takes you a while to stop. When you got to do some precision platforming, that can be really freaking annoying. Now, I have gotten used to it. Like this level right here, you can see that those tiny little points I had to stand on. I had to do this level a lot when I first started playing this, and because I wasn't used to it. You will get used to the inertia. Does that make it good? No, I don't think it does. I think much more of a traditional sort of sudden start and stop movement system would have been better. But, yes, and occasionally you'll pick up little power-ups like this that give you invincibility, or usually things that allow you to pass certain puzzles. But they are timed, so you got to be careful about that too. And yeah, that's the thing is... There are cool ideas in this. So this is one of these dragons. These things have stupid hitboxes. Like I'll show you. See there? See how I took damage there twice? I didn't even touch him. I didn't even come close to touching him. But it counted that as impact. Yeah, so you gotta watch for that. This game is definitely 8-bit level cheap in spots. So here we go. So I died. Ack, I'm dead. I don't know how you can say ack when you're dead, but you know. And here we go, and we're back at it. And the time has moved ahead. So, and it asked, do you want to continue? Yeah, there you go. Now, of course, the one advantage of this modern re-release, too, is that it does have save states. This original game didn't. There was no password system. There was no saving your game. You had to do the whole thing in one go. So in this version, you can save state your game, which is really, really nice to make things a little easier to progress through. But I will tell you that, yes, this gets extremely difficult in a very cheap way later on. I'm not going to lie, I used the invincibility cheat mostly because I wanted to see all the levels and see what was offered. And so I got to the final boss with every upgrade that I could get. And even with invincibility on, it took a while to beat the thing. And I was getting constantly stunned. And yeah, it's not easy. And I could tell that if I was playing it legit, I would have become incredibly frustrated with the... See, that boss was super easy because this is basically the first level that we went to. I could tell that I would have become incredibly frustrated playing this the legit way. Now, that's not unusual for games of the era, but even taking that into account, this is still pretty rough. Definitely. I think if you were playing it in 2-player, it would probably be easier. I'm going to guess the difficulty doesn't scale. So it probably would have been easier that way. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was what they were, if that was the way they were intending this to be played. But, you know, nonetheless, something to keep in mind. So, but the thing about this is, so mostly I think due to licensing reasons, a lot of these Radalaika re-releases are extremely inconsistent when it comes to price. Some of them are quite reasonable. Some of them are, frankly, an insane ripoff. The Turrican collection, anyone. Don't get me wrong, those were great collections, but they were insanely expensive, and so are some of these other individual titles they put out. This one is not. This one is quite reasonably priced, and in the level of where I think it could be a fun impulse buy, or just a buy, you know, something you could pick up because you're interested in some, you know, what I call gaming archaeology, which is that this is a title that never came out in North America. It came out on a system that, in North America at least, was basically a flop. The TurboGrafx didn't do very well in North America. The PC Engine was quite successful, but the TurboGrafx not so much. And so it's a chance to play an obscure title that never originally came out in Japan, and that came out for a platform that not a lot of people got to experience. Not even a lot of enthusiasts got to experience back in the day. And I always think that kind of thing is cool. And I applaud these collections, as I have many times in the past, for being able to give us modernizations and the ability to preserve older titles that weren't famous. Because the collections you see come out from big publishers are always the stuff people know, because they're the safe bet. You know, and I really like to see these more obscure titles come out at reasonable prices, because it exposes people to more things and gives them a wider sphere of knowledge and, you know, influence about what came before, you know? And I always think that's a good thing. Is this a fantastic game? No, it's not. Will you probably finish it once, quite possibly with the invincibility on, and never touch it again? Yeah, probably. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's not important, and that doesn't mean there isn't cool value in this. And when it's priced appropriately, which I think this very much is, it's a neat thing to suggest, and honestly, not a hard thing to recommend. You know, like I said, in terms of the emulation in these Radalaika collections has always been pretty spot on. And the amount of features they bring to the table, it's not as crazy as something like an M2 collection, but it's more than you get in a lot of other modern retro re-releases. And it gives you flexibility to experience the game in a number of different ways. You know, it has rewind, it has save states, you've got your modern quality of life improvements, but if you really want to try to set things up and scale them to the way that they originally were, you can do that too. And I like that it gives you that freedom, and for like I said, for a very reasonable amount of money. So yeah, I would suggest checking it out if you have any curiosity for this, especially if you're someone who don't let this, if you're one of those people who thinks the TurboGrafx-16 sucked, A, you're wrong, but B, don't let this be the driver of that decision, because I will say that while this is very interesting and had some cool ideas, I would not say this is the, you know, the crowning achievement of representing what the TurboGrafx-16 or the PC Engine was and what it was capable of. There are some real classics on that system. And I don't think this is necessarily one of them, but it is a very cool thing nonetheless. And yeah, reasonable price. So, you know, could be worth giving a look, I think. You know, it was neat to experience this, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to. So, yeah, that is Citizen Shockman, also known as the English version of Shubibinman. Man, it's going to take me forever to remember how to pronounce that. It is out now. It's you know, not on PC as usual. Radalaika, seriously, guys, PC. is easy. These modern consoles basically are PCs. I don't know why we don't see this in there. It's just another place to make more money, guys. But it's out on all the other places, and yeah, cool curiosity at a cool price. So I always like to see things like this happening. So thank you guys very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you like what you saw here, please do all the normal YouTube things. Those do help the channel out a great deal. Leave a comment down below. You know, does this interest you? Do you remember the TurboGrafx-16 fondly or not so fondly? And what were some of your favorite games on the platform? Because I can talk about that thing for a while. I may have just ordered an analog duo because I'm insane. So, you know, I kind of like that system a little bit. And as always, you can follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction for multiple variety streams a week. I cover other indie games as well as retro stuff over there, including a lot of things that are better suited to streaming than YouTube. We have a fantastic community there, and I would love to see you be a part of it. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you on the next Retro Ramble. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take her easy.